I asked a few adult leaders to volunteer this morning. If that was you, could you make your way to the stage just now? So there we go. One of the classes that I teach at Ozark every year is a class on philosophy. And in philosophy, we use what are called thought experiments. Some of you came to my elective. We kind of talked about this a little bit. But a thought experiment is basically a hypothetical situation or a hypothetical story designed to get you thinking, designed to get you to ask questions, to question your assumptions, to question the consequences of ideas. Sort of like, here's a really basic thought experiment. If you bought a car and over the next 5 years you gradually replaced every single part of the car, would you have the same car 5 years from now that you have today? So that's just kind of a classic thought experiment. Parables, which we've been talking about all week, parables, the parables of Jesus, parables are their own kind of thought experiment. These are stories that Jesus told with the intention of getting us to think in a different way, from a new perspective, to think about what the kingdom of heaven is really like. And so we've heard stories about a prodigal son. We've heard stories about a man searching for treasure in a field. And so these parables are designed to sort of capture your imagination, to get you thinking about what God's kingdom actually looks like. Well, I want to do a little bit of a thought experiment this morning with the help of some of my friends up here on the stage. And I'm just going to really quickly interview each one of you, just very quickly. I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? So, first, I'm going to just give this to you. First question, name.
Jared.
Jared. Okay. Jared, where are you from?
Indiana.
From Indiana.
Lots.
Okay. Great. Jared,
Yeah.
are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have children?
Yes.
How many children?
2.
2 kids. Okay. Ages?
4 and 1.
Awesome. Okay. 4 and 1. How old are you?
27.
27. Okay. And Jared, what do you do for a living?
I'm a youth minister.
Youth minister. Fantastic. Not a lot of applause for that. There we go. Youth ministry. Okay. So Jared, do you have any special skills, like bow staff skills, or any special talents or skills?
Play baseball.
Play baseball. All right, good, cool.
Yeah.
Baseball. All right, if you wouldn't mind handing. Okay, so what's your name?
Becca.
What is it?
Becca.
Becca. Okay, Becca. Becca, where are you from?
Virginia.
Virginia. Let's hear it for Virginia again.
Yeah.
All right. Becca, are you married?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have children?
Yes.
How many?
3.
3 kids. What are their ages?
9, 7, and 2.
9, 7, and 2. Now, it's impolite as a gentleman to ask a woman her age, so I'm just going to guess 25.
Thank you.
So
I'm 34.
Okay, 34.
I'm fine with it.
All right. So, great. What do you do for a living?
I'm a media director for a nonprofit.
You're a media director for a nonprofit. Fantastic.
And a youth pastor's wife.
And a youth pastor's wife. There we go. That's a big job. Do you have any special skills or talents?
I edit things.
You edit things. Hey, listen, that is a huge
I keep
talent.
3 humans alive. I can't think of anything other than that.
That ain't nothing. All right, we'll hand it on to the next person. What's your name?
Dak.
Dak. Okay. Dak, where are you from?
Boca Raton, Florida.
Boca Raton, Florida. All right.
my church.
How old are you?
24.
24. Are you married?
No, but I have a beautiful girlfriend sitting back
Oh,
there.
look at that.
Can't see her.
Fantastic. What's her name?
Caitlin Holly.
Hello, Caitlin. All right, cool. So what do you do for a living?
I'm a youth pastor.
Youth pastor.
Yeah.
There we go. Do you have any special skills?
Play guitar a little bit.
Play guitar. Okay. Fantastic. And what's your name?
Steve.
Steve. All right. Steve, where are you from?
Indiana.
Indiana. Indiana in-house. And how old are you?
39.
39, okay. Not 40 quite yet.
Not yet.
Are you married?
Yes.
Kids?
Yes.
Okay, how many kids?
6.
6 kids! Woo! What are their ages?
16, 14, 11, 9, 8, and 7.
You got there. See, the thing is, we wouldn't have known even if you were wrong, so
True.
that's fine. Cool, so what do you do for a living?
I manage software developers.
All right, software developer. And do you have any special skills?
I know how to code programs.
You know how to code and program. Okay, all right, great. Well, thank you. You guys stay up here for a second. So my name is Chad. I am 44 years old. I'm married. I have 3 kids, 17, 16, and 12. I live in Joplin, Missouri, where I am a college professor and administrator. I play the piano a little bit, and I am a black belt in Taekwondo. Seriously, true story. I got it when I was in 5th grade, though, so it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. So there is a famous thought experiment that sometimes is called the life raft thought experiment. And it's designed to get students, usually students, to think about values, to think about ethics, to think about, what is important in life and stuff like that. And it goes sort of like this. So imagine the 5 of us are shipwrecked, and we are all now floating in a life raft after the shipwreck. The problem is the life raft is only designed to support 4 people. And of course, there are 5 of us. And so the dilemma is if all 5 of us stay in the life raft, we all will perish, okay? So we have to make the decision, who are we going to throw over the edge of the life raft, okay? So we're going to do that thought experiment this morning. No, we're not, you maniacs, because it's a mean thought experiment. We're not going to do that thing. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're not going to kick anyone off the life raft this morning. Yes?
Can one just hang on the side?
See, that's the thing with the thought experiment. I always wondered that. Like, why can't you just alternate people just floating along the side of the life raft? Like, there are other solutions. There's always another option rather than killing someone. Just remember that in life. Write that down. Write that down. Okay, you guys can have a seat. Thank you. All right, give them a hand. So, for a moment, put yourself in that life raft. For a moment, put yourself in that life raft. What would your mindset be if you were one of the people in the life raft? My guess is, if you're being completely honest with yourself, my guess is that your mindset would be, I have to constantly prove my value. I have to constantly prove my worth. I mean, after all, I don't want to be the one that everyone decides to throw off the edge of this life raft. I've got special skills, special abilities. I've got people that I care for and that care for me. No, please don't throw me off the edge of this life. So our whole mindset would be centered on just trying to remain in the life raft, to keep from getting thrown overboard. Now, for a moment, imagine that the whole world functions sort of like this life raft. And we are all in it together. We are all in it together. You see evidence of this life raft thinking all around us, everywhere we look. So sports, for instance. Anybody into sports? Different sport? I'm into sports. There we go. Some people get so invested in sports that they feel personally validated when their team wins. I know that's me. So when my team wins, it's not my team wins, it's what? We won. When my team loses, I don't want to be associated with losers, so we won, but they lost. And what that is that's just a small little picture of my insecurity showing through. I don't want to be invalidated. I want to be proven to be worthy, and so I invest I invest my worth in things like sports to try to show that I'm worthwhile, to try to keep from getting thrown over the side of the life raft. Or what about things like music, art, academics? Things that should bring us joy instead make us kind of miserable because we use these things out of this sense of personal anxiety. We constantly have to prove our worth with these things. So my grades, the grades I get at school, are a way for me to prove my worth. My musical ability, my artistic talent, this is a way for me to prove my worth. It should bring me joy, but it actually makes me miserable because I'm using these things out of my own anxiety. I just want to show everyone around me that I'm worthwhile. Please, just don't chuck me over the side of this life raft. I'm worthwhile. Matter of fact, I'm more worthwhile than these other clowns. I've got more to offer. I've got more to bring to the table. Social media has encouraged this. Some of you were in my elective the other day. We talked a little bit about this. We talked about Instagram. You remember that? Now, I'm not a hater of Instagram. I'm on Instagram. But Instagram allows us to do two artificial things to our lives. It allows us to edit our lives. We only put out there what we want other people to see. And it also allows us to filter whatever we put out there, so that even what we put on Instagram is an artificial picture of what our life is really about. But what social media incentivizes, it incentivizes this life raft thinking. I've got to publicize myself, get as many likes as I possibly can, get as many retweets as I possibly can. I need that validation. I need people to show me that I am worthwhile because I am so terrified of getting thrown over the edge of this life raft. We have a hard time. I'm not gonna ask you to tattle on yourself this morning, but some of you will resonate with this. We have a hard time being genuinely happy for other people when they succeed. Instead, we find ourselves resenting them. Their success, their popularity, it actually makes us feel more insecure, more anxious. Their success is actually regarded as a threat to us. If everyone else sees how successful they are, maybe they won't value me as much. Maybe they'll actually chuck me over the side of this life raft. Their success is a threat, so we may put on a fake smile, but in reality, we're dying inside. Terrified we're going to get thrown over this life raft. This life raft thinking, it's all around us every day. It even affects the way that we think about God. Oh, I'm a more faithful person than this other guy. I've put in more hours, more service, more worship than this other person. I've done more, sacrificed more. I've gone to church more. I even took a week out of my summer and went to CIY. I am important. I am worthwhile. I am righteous. We are insecure in our identity, and so we feel the need to prove our worth to God and also to others. And that's what this morning's parable is really about. Jesus tells this story of a wealthy landowner. And he hires day laborers to work in his vineyard. The first crew that he hires very early in the morning, probably about 5 o'clock in the morning, before the workday really even starts, he hires this crew, and he promises them a denarius, which is a day's wage. He promises them a fair wage to come work in his vineyard. Throughout the rest of the day, the landowner goes back and he hires more workers all throughout the day. He even goes out and hires a crew of workers at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just 1 hour before quitting time. He's just constantly bringing these workers in throughout the day, and at the end of the day, it's time to pay his workers. And the group that he decides to pay first is the group that he hired last. So he brings this crew in that he just hired like an hour before, and he pays them a full day's wages. This would be 12 times more what they should have expected to get. Pays them a full day's wages, even though they only really worked for an hour. Now, the other people, those who were hired early in the morning, they see this, they observe this, and they're excited, at least at first. Hey, if this guy is willing to pay these workers a full day's wages, what are we going to get? So then they're disappointed when the landowner comes to them and he pays them the exact same amount. He pays them a day's worth of wages. And their complaint, the complaint they make to the landowner is, well, that's not fair. And the truth is, they were right. Now imagine, any of you take AP chemistry this year? No? Nobody? One person. Okay. So when I was a high school junior, the hardest class that I ever took was AP chemistry. I hated that class. That class made me work harder than any other class I was ever in. And I worked hard, and I ended up getting a decent grade in the class. Now, imagine you're in a class like that, a really difficult class, a hard class, and you work all semester doing extra homework, putting in extra hours because you want to get that good grade at the end of the semester, and at the end of the semester, you finally get there, and boom, you get that A. And you're proud of yourself. You're happy with yourself. Imagine if there's another person in that class. They join that class in the last week of the semester. So they just show up the last week of the semester, they do like one assignment, and they end up with the exact same grade that you do. How would you feel about that? You probably wouldn't be very excited about that. You probably would say, well, that's just not fair. That's what these workers were feeling in this parable. They were indignant. And so the landowner, he responds to them basically with two things. The first thing that the landowner says is, listen, I am just. I'm just. I promised you a day's wage, and that is in fact what I paid you. I kept my word. I did not short you on what I promised. I am just. But the second thing that he says is I am generous. I am just. I am also generous. The field, after all, doesn't belong to you. The field belongs to me. It's mine. I can do with it what I want. And so if I choose to be generous to those who were hired last, what is that to you? Why are you envious of my generosity? Literally, what the text says is, why are your eyes evil because I am generous? They have evil eyes. What that means is, rather than being happy with what they've been given, they instead are envious, resentful, even hateful to those that the landowner has been generous towards. Do you hear the lifeboat thinking in this story? Look at us. Look what we've done. We are so much worthy, so much more worthy than anyone else. And this thinking leads to resentment, which causes us to pout, to be grumpy about grace rather than to celebrate grace. Rather than having joy for what others have received, we can only think about ourselves. Here's the thing. God's kingdom is not like that lifeboat. God's kingdom isn't a competition for clout, because God's kingdom is not fair. And I need you to understand that that's a good thing. God is a just God, but God is not a fair God. Because none of us, not a single person in this room, deserves God's grace, forgiveness, and mercy, but He has given it to us anyway. And there is so much freedom in that. We don't have to argue about status. We don't have to constantly prove ourselves. We don't have to be insecure with who we are and if we are worthy. We don't have to be resentful and anxious about the way that God might be using other people. We can simply delight in a God who has called us to live and to serve in his kingdom, no matter who we are, no matter what we've done, no matter if we grew up in the church or we didn't, no matter what our past is, no matter how worthy the world may think we are. Every single person has a place in the kingdom of God. Let's pray.